Good morning, good afternoon, welcome all. Welcome to Faith Lies and Confusion. I'm your host, Godless Reggie, and this is my co-host NJ. How's everyone doing? How are you, NJ, today? You're muted. You're still muted.
Fabulous. I'm fabulous. Look, 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 look. I came prepared. I have beverages.
Me too, me too. I always keep that on deck. This is one of my best friends. Coffee, three sugars, very light cream. This today's episode is titled David
Five
Koresh.
sugars, heavy cream. Thank you.
Well, a lot of times when I make coffee, people don't like it because they say it's a little bit too dark for them. Because I don't like watered down coffee. I think I was like that when I used to drink too. I really wouldn't pay for flavored liquor. If I wanted to add flavor, I could do it on my own. I'm not gonna pay you for juice and Kool-Aid and all that shit. I like coffee.
See, you sound like everybody around me. I make coffee a little on the weak side,
Mhm.
but I'm learning to appreciate it on the stronger side because then I don't need a whole pot. I can get by with 3 cups.
My personal opinion on coffee is this. Okay, if I drink some coffee, right, and it doesn't make me feel like breaking in your house and stealing every TV you got in that motherfucker, I don't want it. It ain't no good. No, I'm joking. But good morning. So, again, today's show is titled David Koresh and the '93 Waco, Texas tragedy. I don't know how old any of the viewers are here, but this is a story that I remember growing up in my childhood about a cult um, in Waco, Texas. The guy that was the head of that cult, David Koresh. Some people look at him as a martyr. Some people look at him as a criminal. Some people look at him as a cult leader. I think that many of those definitions definitely would apply, but I'm not too sure if what happened there was just. What's your opinion?
Um, was it just? No. It should have just left them people alone. But, but by the time Waco happened, I was tainted from the move incident, which happened just across the bridge from me. So, um, I can see why it happened. I wasn't mad that it happened because I'm a bit of a vengeful person. I'm a bit of a vengeful person. But once I went down the rabbit hole when I got a little bit older, they should have just left them people alone. They wasn't bothering nobody except till I got to the part about the children when he had deemed himself God Almighty and he needed to procreate through children. That is where I said, you know what? Burn, baby, burn, burn. Just go and burn. No,
I don't I don't have a problem with what happened to him, right? I just feel that there was other innocent people that were involved, some of which may have been children. I can't hold children 100% accountable for being brainwashed, and the reason why is because that's on their stupid ass parents. That's number one. So I really don't like how it turned out. I'm gonna have to agree with you. Overall, the best thing to have done in that situation to save lives probably would have been to leave them alone. Do I think that he deserves to get unalived or justice to be served to him? Absolutely, but at what detriment? Was it worth children losing their lives? Maybe not. So I really don't know how they should have went about that. I really don't have an answer to that. I can't say, oh well, they should have just snuffed them all out of there because I know that a lot of those people were willing to die. So
and and once you get into the details of it, you're going to enjoy the fact that to this day, in no written logs will they say exactly how the fire started.
that's the biggest mystery. I've heard conflicting stories on this. I heard they started the fire. I heard that the FBI or whatever police agency it was that actually was on the scene started the fire. I heard that the police actually sent tear gas in there. I don't know the exact chemical components of tear gas, so I don't want to overstate what happened. I don't know if it's flammable or not. Um, no one's ever like described that to me, but from my understanding, they are trying to say that because of that, that started the fire. I don't know how true that is.
Eh, I think you would have to understand the mentality at the time, because exactly 2 years after that happened is when they bombed the Oklahoma City building. So me, myself, would definitely say they started that fire themselves. They put gasoline and flammable materials in anything that was flammable, like hay, and they lit that shit because they thought that that would make the agents go away. I guess, and the agents didn't go away; they stayed there. So they figured, well, we let all them black folks burn. Might as well let these ones burn too, and burn
Well,
they did.
well, look, if I don't know, I don't know the exact logistics of what happened. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not saying it did because clearly I wasn't there. If that happened, if it happened, how exactly how you said it, you know, we have to look on the side of human beings. Okay, so say for instance, I'm a law enforcement agency, right? Or whatever the case may be, right? I'm not going in that shit. I'm not doing that shit. Mm-mm, mm-mm. I'm not doing it. It's not worth it. The human part is going to kick in. You can't ask me to risk my life for that.
Mm,
I'm already risking my life by being there. Mm-mm, you don't pay me enough.
there ain't a paycheck big enough to get me to do that. I can visually assess. I will not survive that. I'm gonna stay right here.
Hmm.
If anybody comes out, I'll help them out, but I ain't going in there.
No, no, I don't care who in there. I don't care who in there.
They
So
don't pay enough. They don't pay enough.
right, but now that I'm a little bit older, I don't know if I necessarily believe that's what happened. I do know that if the government want wants you, um, they're gonna do whatever it takes to accomplish that. Me being aware of situations that have happened to black people, like in Philadelphia in the '80s and things, it's not too far of a fetch to say that the government, the police wouldn't do that themselves. So I'm not sure exactly what happened, but I'm gonna try to get to the bottom of it today. So let me read a little bit about David Koresh, because I know that not everyone knows so much about him. Time has went on. It's been what 31 years. A lot of this has got swept under the rug. People have died. People have gotten older. Stories have gotten twisted. So let's see what we can find out about him. Okay, David Koresh, born Vernon Wayne Howe on August 17th, 1959, was the leader of the Branch Davidians, a religious cult that became infamous for its involvement in the '93 siege near Waco, Texas. The Branch Davidians were a splinter group of the Davidian movement, which itself was a branch of the Seventh day Adventist Church. Koresh claimed to be the final prophet and the Lamb of God, and believed that he was chosen to lead his followers through a coming apocalypse. Koresh took over the leadership of the group in the mid '80s, and under his rule, the Branch Davidians became more isolated, with many of his followers living in a compound known as the Mount Carmel Center, located outside of Waco. Koresh's teachings centered around an apocalyptic vision, which included a belief in an impending battle between good and evil, with the Branch Davidians playing a central role. He also took multiple wives, many of whom were underage, and this raised serious legal and ethical concerns. The group came under scrutiny by the federal government, particularly the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, for suspected illegal weapons possession. In 1993, the ATF attempted to execute a search warrant in the compound, suspecting that Koresh and his followers had illegal firearms and were stockpiling weapons. The resulting confrontation led to a violent firefight in which 4 ATF agents and 6 Branch Davidians were killed. Following this, the FBI took control of the situation, leading to a 51-day standoff that was heavily covered by the media. Negotiations were initially successful, with some members of the group being released, but ultimately on April 19th, 1993, the FBI launched a final assault on the compound. After several hours of intense conflict, including the use of tanks and tear gas, a fire broke out within the compound. The exact cause of the fire remains disputed, with some believing that it was deliberately set by the Branch Davidians, while others argue that it was caused by the FBI's actions. In any case, the fire resulted in the deaths of David Koresh and 75 of his followers, including children. The Waco siege remains a controversial event in American history, raising questions about the government's handling of the situation and the use of force in dealing with religious groups. Koresh and the Branch Davidians became symbols of resistance for some conspiracy theorists and militia movements, and the incident was cited as one of the key factors that led to the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995. So, yes, you hit it dead on the head. I wasn't aware of that, or in the past 30 years, I completely forgot. I'm going to go with the first one that I was completely unaware of that. But that's interesting. Very, very interesting.
Yep, I remember all that all too well, every last drop of it. Because I was a kid, it ain't had nothing to do but watch the news before I went to school, because I had already seen all the cartoon episodes. You can only watch G.I. Joe but so many times before you have it memorized.
Right. The American hero. I used to love
Right,
G.I. Joe.
right. But I still want to know uh, how the ATF got ran off, but the FBI had 51 days to just chill and hang out.
Great point. Great point. Um, I'm confused about that too. If y'all the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, right? It seems like you should be able to handle the situation. And if they got there, right? Okay, say for instance, if the ATF got there and they had some resistance, what the fuck y'all did? Y'all left when y'all got tired and said, you know what? I don't want it. FBI, come get it.
Oh, I know what happened. I know what happened. If I remember correctly, I believe the exact number is six of them lost their lives. That's what made them decide it was time to go.
Right, but my point is like, how did it end? Like right then and there. Okay, so for example, say the police come over my house, right? There's a standoff, whatever. A couple of them, get unalived. That's not the end of it. It's not gonna stop right then and there. It's not going. Oh, hold on. You know what? I'm gonna come back for you. Give me, give me a couple days. You got me. You got me. Hey, you whoop my ass, but I'm gonna come back. And until it's over with, it's over with. I'm not gonna give you time to think about it. The police don't work like that. They don't work like that. You kill one of them, they send in the motherfucking National Guard. Or maybe things were different then. Okay, 93, I was 11 years old. But I just don't see how you gave up. Y'all the alphabet boys. I don't get it. So I'm gonna play a video.
Was that 93? Dang, I keep thinking like I was a teenager. I was grown. I didn't have kids yet, but I was grown.
Yeah, I was probably in what, sixth grade, seventh grade, something like that. I was definitely young
See, that's
enough
what my
to the point
memory be
where,
messing up. I be thinking I was younger than I was when stuff went down. I be like, oh, I was a kid. No, I wasn't. I was grown. I was grown.
I'm gonna play a video of this situation. It's about him. It's him talking. This is a little bit before the actual incident happened.
themselves, between what's right, it's Christ, and what's wrong, that's the devil. And I have to admit, doing right in my life and doing wrong in my life. But
this was David when we first met him in an exclusive interview back in 1987. At the time, he was known as Vernon Howe, and he was involved in a deadly dispute for control of the Branch Davidian sect. Even then, his enemies were saying this self-proclaimed son of God was closer to Satan
George says you're a warlock and that you have the sign of an upside down cross on your chest, and that's the sign of a warlock. You've studied Satanism.
I never was involved in Satanism, but you can see I'm a musician. You say the guitars and stuff. There was a time in my life where I was seeking after Christ and all that, and I come to the end of my rope in life, and you know what I did was is that I took a 5 and dime store cross and all that, and I was there mounted with a candle, you see, and it fell on my chest.
Back in November of 1987, 8 heavily armed Koresh followers in battle fatigues advance on a desolate church compound called Rodenville, just outside of Waco, Texas. They're met by a gun-toting preacher named George Roden.
2 or 3 of them over there in the house, and that's where I asked them who they were and what they wanted, you see. And so when they answered, they started shooting. So that was the answer I got from them.
When the smoke clears, George Roden is rushed to the hospital with a flesh wound. The 8 suspects are rushed off to jail. The charge, attempted murder. More than a dozen high-powered guns and hundreds of rounds of ammunition are seized. It looks like a throwback to the days when Waco was known as Six-Shooter Junction. But as sheriff's deputies search the grounds, a bizarre tale of power and prophecy, greed and guns, begins to unfold, with David Koresh at its center.
Please, 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 won't you listen? It's not what it appears to be. You didn't want to hurt anybody. It's that I want people free.
I just had to stop it for a second because I just wanted to touch on the fact that I don't know if he's a quote unquote musician. I think that he's using that term a little loose, a little loose. I think he's more of a pedophile. Something else I heard, and I wanted to stop it. I just wanted to play a little bit, but man, oh my goodness, ladies, I gotta get on you. I gotta get on you. I spare none. I got to get on you. I got to get on you, and the reason why I got to get on you is because I was raised with mostly women, right? My mom raised me. I got mostly all girl cousins, mostly sisters, you know. So I know for a fact that women are incredibly intelligent. I would say that they're probably smarter than men because they're not thinking with their dick like that, right? So this is crazy. So you mean to tell me that you let a man brainwash you with an upside down fucking cross on his damn chest? I don't I don't understand that. I don't. I mean, because I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little bit perverted. I don't know. I can just imagine. Can you imagine him fucking you with his shirt off, and you just look back and you see an upside down cross, and you think this man taking you to heaven?
So you didn't get to that part of the story yet, but he was the only one in
Ooh.
the compound allowed to have sex. He was the only one. He had men bring the women in the compound, but once they were there, he would tell the men, kind of like that 144,000 marching through the desert, that they had to be celibate while he was allowed to have sex with their girlfriends, wives, and female children.
And they really went for like. So I don't get it, and got to get on the men now. Now that you said that, because I was not aware of that again, or I forgot about it. But so you mean to tell me that I'm in here and it's all these females on here, and the only one that can have some ass is you?
That's it.
I bet you that wasn't really happening though. I bet you that wasn't really happening. It's no way. It's no way. He only have one dick. He only have one. So just imagine if you in that rotation, you as a woman, you in that rotation, right? Say you 25, right? So you're number 25 on this list. I figure if there's 70 something people in there, at least 30, 35, 40 of them is women. Okay. Probably more than that because again, we're thinking through his mind. His mind is perverted. He's trying to get as many possible women as he can. So probably more than all of them is women, right? So just imagine if you're in rotation, right? And you're a woman, you're number 28, 29, or something like that. And there's a couple other eligible men around there, right? You mean to tell me that you're not gonna fuck with them? You better off. And if you think about it, I'm telling the truth. Because okay, so David is having sex with all these women, right? That shit has to stink. And what if one of them has an STD? All of you got it. So if I'm you and I'm the woman, right, and I'm number 20 or whatever, I'm gonna go ahead and sleep with whoever else is there because chances is he ain't getting none anyway. So I'm better off physically fucking with him. I don't understand that.
We weren't there. We can't fathom it. because we're out here with plenty of options, and if one don't work, we all know next is available. But he considered himself a Messiah, and well, there's a storybook that tells me that 144,000 men marched through the desert with nothing but their palms and some cattle, and they made do. So, who am I to judge this particular Messiah's outcome? I have no clue. I have no clue.
And it's like, okay, so when I stopped it again, like, okay, about him being a musician, okay, I can understand if he just was this great musician and he just singing these bitches' draws off or something like that. But
Nope.
I was in the other room getting coffee and I can hear this shit, and my ears was like, I can do better than that. That shit was terrible. He just sing, bro. That shit it's not even appealing what you playing.
Growing
Like,
up in the 80s, I have seen some little girls give up their draws for a little boy with a terrible rhyme, but he managed to put their name in it. Told him he was going to be cutting his album the next week, and they gave up their draws. So I'm gonna just leave that there. I've seen it work.
whew, things ain't like wasn't like that when I was growing up. I mean, people was trying to rhyme. I'm an '80s. I'm an '80s baby, so I was born in the '80s. So I didn't really see the whole '80s. I do remember Ronald Reagan and all that shit, but I was a young child in the '80s. You know what I'm saying? So nobody wasn't really giving up their draws that I knew about willingly. But in the '90s, they wasn't going for that shit. They weren't going for that at all. You had to already be established. You had to have a Jerry curl, a couple pair of Dion's or Jordans or something like that. You had to have a gun, starter jacket, something like that. You had to have a little something. You couldn't just be because everybody was doing that shit. You know what I'm saying? So
Well, in the 80s, they gave it up for nothing more than a beatbox with their name in it. You missed your calling. You missed your calling.
yeah, I was still dry humping in the '80s. But let me get back to the Big David Koresh.
28-year-old David Koresh sang of a madman living in Waco, a song made more bizarre by what's happened in the last 2 days. At the time, he was describing George Roden, his rival, in a battle for the hearts and minds of a tiny religious sect called the Branch Davidians Seventh-day Adventists. David admitted leading the raid on Rodenville, but says it wasn't George's life he was after, just pictures of the dead person in this casket. Roden dug up the casket from an unmarked grave a year earlier and reportedly challenged David to a divine test. Both men would try to raise the woman from the dead. Whoever brought her to life was the true prophet.
Whoever God was with was to resurrect this lady.
This was a challenge he made to you?
Yes. And so you hear something like that and you kind of go, well, not today, George. And you just hang the phone up. You see what I'm saying?
There's a madman living in Waco. He's bowing his knee to bear. Won't you help Mr. Sheriff? We won't fail.
David asked the sheriff to charge George for vandalizing a grave, but the sheriff said he needed pictures of the actual body. So David went back to the scene equipped with a camera, army fatigues, and an arsenal of guns.
Why did you need to go with 8 men in army fatigues and submachine guns?
You mean Kmart hiding suits? Submachine guns? We had no submachine guns. There was no automatic weapons. We went there to take the pictures, and then what we would have is we would have legal authorities who would take it into their hands and drive George off the land.
The sheriff says they also had no film in their camera. George believes the casket was a cover story, that they really came to bury him.
He burned down our administration building. He raped my mother, and now he came out here trying to kill me.
Koresh denied these allegations. At the center of the controversy is a 77-acre compound that was the site of a bloody shootout with federal agents this past Sunday. The compound now...
He
You want to
he
say something,
raped
Jay?
his mother. He raped his mother. He raped his mother and left of his own free volition. Like, you didn't use any of these guns that were supposedly on the property. He raped your mama and just walked away. I'm so confused. I'm so confused.
Me too. And I thought David liked him young. If that dude raped your mom, he must have been tearing some grannies up. I mean, I'm not trying to make joke of the situation or light of it. Well, maybe I am, but I don't know. I'm not saying he didn't do it, but this is
But they just went over that part like it was nothing to the story. Just, yeah, he came here to supposedly get some pictures, raped my mother and left. And I'm just like, hey, We're not okay. We'll leave that alone. We'll leave that alone. We'll leave.
I don't know. Maybe David just feels like he just have to put the Jesus juice in every female. I don't know. I've heard of the exact opposite of that about a preacher, a woman preacher, that she says that the way to heaven is through her, you know, her vagina. Like I said that I don't believe in God or nothing like that, but I think I would actually go to that church at least once a month. Whenever they're doing communion, I think I will go on that Sunday. Interesting.
called Mount Carmel, was originally named Rodenville and was founded in 1959 by George's parents as a home for the religious set. George feels it is his by birthright, sort of divine mission. But David says George stole the compound from the people who built it, and he took his followers to just outside Palestine, Texas.
There's a little children living in the cold country sea. And all the while, how can you turn your back on the sea?
It's people cold. My baby's been sick also. You see, I live in a bus, okay? Older people live in 8x12 shacks. Would you want your 83-year-old grandmother to off a place where she put time and effort for 25 years, all because a guy thinks he inherited it?
Even back then, Mount Carmel looked more like an armed camp than a religious retreat. The entrance was blocked by the sort of barricades one expects to see in Beirut, not in Waco.
The gate is protected just like the White House is. Like they should have protected the boys in Lebanon. And
What's the
contrary,
purpose of that?
well, that's to stop car bombs from coming in and blowing me up or any of the people here.
You expect these people to come back,
It's just a matter of time.
and there'll be another gun battle.
I don't imagine they're coming with BB guns like they said they had before. And it don't look like this is BB gun action to me.
Are you going to go back and take that property by force?
The authorities have it in their hands, and that's where I'm going to keep it from now on.
The bitter struggle between George Roden and David Koresh, which first brought David Koresh to national attention on a current affair, had a bizarre ending. The charges against Koresh and his followers didn't stick, and they were all freed, and the charges dropped.
I've never been in trouble my whole life.
But David Koresh is in big trouble now. Trouble prophetically foreshadowed as long ago as 1987.
I don't believe in people driving off people at gunpoint. When someone fires a gun at you, your way of thinking is totally changed.
Do you consider yourself a prophet?
Let me say this much. I consider myself someone who's found grace in the sight of Christ. If I can be a prophet to you, but give me a study about the Bible, then yeah, I'm a prophet.
Sounds like a typical liar to me. Um, to your point, what you said earlier, NJ, I really don't know how you let that man come there do anything to your fucking mom and y'all didn't kill his ass, because I would have blew him and every last one of them away. Why did you have guns if you're not going to pull the fucking trigger? I don't get that.
That's always been my question with this incessant need of Americans to stay armed. Like, if we never ever going to shoot the people that piss us off, well, unless it's road rage. I've heard of road rage in certain states where they're willing to pull the trigger. But my point is why have the guns? Why have so many guns that the ATF feels the need to come in and do a random search and seizure? Just, it's not making no sense. It's not. And the fact that this is all over land disputes is even more mind-boggling to me. Because when we had land disputes, they told us is just go to a different state, find another piece of land, pay for it all over again, and get over it. You're never gonna get it back.
But this is Texas we're talking about, right? The dude that's saying that the guy raped his mom, he looks like the type motherfucker that will kill you for trespassing regardless of the fact. Did you see his fucking stomach, how it was hanging over his stomach? That motherfucker looked like he looked just like the gun he's holding. Soon as they can, you should have shot the shit out of his ass, because I believe if you would have seen a Mexican or a black person come walk through your property, you would fucking shoot at him, because you know that you would get away with that shit. So why the fuck you didn't kill him? Y'all dumb. Like, I be hating when people have opportunities to use the law on their side and don't do shit, and then the person later on goes around and does a whole bunch of heinous shit and you let him get away with it. For example, R. Kelly. Y'all could have stopped that shit a long time ago before it even got to that point. He'd been a fucking pedophile his whole life. I don't get it. I blame Aaliyah's parents for a lot of things that happen. And the reason why I do is because, look, I think I've spoken on this platform before, but the reason why we never hear about R. Kelly being married to Aaliyah is because I found out that her family has the executive rights to R. Kelly's first 3 albums. And what that means is he paid them to shut the fuck up. You sold your daughter's pussy. You wrong as fuck.
Sold it, sold it, sold it, and then kept the right for the money to keep coming in. And all of the young ladies that came after Aaliyah were hoping for the same deal. And the parents got mad when they sold their daughters and the money didn't keep rolling in. That's when they decided to start snitching and complaining about their daughters. That's when the money stopped rolling in.
Hmm. Because one thing I definitely remember as a child, because after so many years, stories get cloudy. I remember being in the car with my mom, right, and hearing on the radio that R. Kelly married her. I remember that. And then a couple months later, it just completely disappeared from life. I never heard nothing about that again, damn near until she died. And this was maybe 6 or 7 years later.
Power 99, Wendy Williams show. I remember hearing about them two getting married. He had married Aaliyah, and then it was annulled like the same week they made the announcement,
Hmm.
and then they just made it disappear. They wouldn't talk on it. They were never married
Mm-mm.
at all. And it was like, no, the marriage was annulled, and they were like, same thing. They were never married. It didn't happen. Don't talk about it. Okay,
I still remember. I still,
right.
I
It
still
doesn't
fucking remember.
it doesn't make it go out my mind. I know that it happened. No
Hmm.
matter what the legal process is, I know that it happened.
Right.
And just like you said, I know that those parents still have the rights to that music.
I still
And
do.
that is the music that they still play on the radio.
Hmm.
Because the money doesn't go to R. Kelly. It's only music where R. Kelly gets paid that they stop using.
TP3, I mean TP2 on up is where he gets paid. If I may be off by album or so, don't misquote me. I know I'm correct about the first three, but from about 2000 or 2001 on up is when he's getting paid, and that's not his best work. So that's part of the reason why R. Kelly is broke right now. If he had those three albums in his possession, where he got the money for him, oh, he'd be straight. He'd be
Yep.
straight. But yeah, we're getting a little off. Well, we're getting super de duper off track. Um, Let me do a little bit more reading on David Koresh. Let's see, where was I at? Give me a second. Thank everybody for stopping by, as always. Well, I read about the Branch Davidians because the name of his cult was, they called themselves Branch Davidians. Let's see what the screen looks like. Okay. The Branch Davidians, or the General Association of Branch Davidian Seventh day Adventists, are a Christian sect founded in 1955 by Benjamin Roden. They regarded themselves as a continuation of the General Association of Davidian Seventh day Adventists established by Victor Hotef in 1935. They have often been described as a doomsday cult. Hotef, a Seventh day Adventist who wrote a series of tracts entitled The Shepherd's Rod, which called for reform of the Seventh day Adventist Church. After his ideas were rejected, Hotef and his followers formed a group that became known as the Davidians, and some moved on to land outside of Waco, Texas. They built a community called the Mount Carmel Center, which served as headquarters for the movement. After Hotef's death in 1955, his wife Florence took control of the organization. That same year, Benjamin Roden, a follower of Hotef, proclaimed what he believed to be a new message from God and wrote letters presenting it to Davidians. He signed these letters, the branch, believing that to be the new name Jesus had taken to reflect a new stage of his work in the heavenly sanctuary. Those who accepted Benjamin Roden's teachings became known as Branch Davidian Seven day Adventists. In 1957, Florence sold the Mount Carmel Center and purchased 941 acres near Elk, Texas, 13 miles northeast of Waco, naming it the New Mount Carmel Center after the failure of Florence's prophecies of apocalyptic events on or near April 22nd, 1959. She dissolved the Davidian Association in 1962 and sold all but 77.86 acres of the New Mount Carmel property. Benjamin Roden took possession of it in 1962 and began efforts to purchase the remaining 77.86 acres. On February 27, 1973, New Mount Carmel was sold to Benjamin, his wife Lois Roden, and their son George Roden. From then on, the property was simply known as Mount Carmel. Upon the death of Benjamin Roden in 1978, Lois became the next Davidian prophet at the compound. So I'm assuming that anybody that's the leader of this group name just gets turns to David. In 1981, a young man named Vernon Howe, later known as David Koresh, came to Mount Carmel and studied biblical prophecy under Lois Roden. In 1983, Howe, which is Koresh, had gained a group of followers that separated from Lois's organization to form the Davidian branch, Davidian David Seventh Day Adventist Association. Meanwhile, Lois continued to operate the branch Davidian Seventh Day Adventist Association from Mount Carmel Center near Waco. Koresh's group and the branch Davidians, Lois's group, were two separate organizations with different leaders, names, and associations from 1983. And it was not until 1987, after Lois died, that Koresh filed a document claiming to be the president of the branch Davidian Seventh Day Adventist Association. Koresh and his followers further went to Mount Carmel Center, engaging in a shootout with George Roden that eventually resulted in Koresh's group occupying the land. These actions are regarded by branch Davidians who remain loyal to Lois Roden as an act of identity theft against them. Okay, so I'm gonna stop for a little bit. Basically, what I just read is kind of uh basically a description of what we just watched a few minutes ago, of the guy saying that David came on the compound fighting for the land, raped his mom, blah 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 blah. Um, that's the description of that event, and that is the reason why they did it. I know that I had the video sped up a little bit, so much to the point where I really didn't understand the reason why they did what they did. But basically, it's because of a split that took place that really had nothing to do with David, and David was just trying to connect with the land and basically do some colonizer shit and take the shit back, basically, to sum it all up.
That's it. That's it. Some colonizer shit. Some colon. But but I'm waiting for you to get to the good part of the story, because I was on Wikipedia, and I don't really like Wikipedia as a source, but sometimes it's got the juiciest detail. Like, the ATF had planned a sudden daylight raid of the ranch in order to serve these warrants. Any advantage of surprise was lost when a local reporter who had been tipped off about the raid asked for directions from a U.S. Postal Service mail carrier who was coincidentally Koresh's brother-in-law.
Mm,
I just love a good little piece of information like that. I just careful when you go into town who you ask questions of, because you just never know.
right, that was a terrible agent. How couldn't you play that off a little bit better? That's
Well,
crazy.
who tipped the local reporter? That's what I want to know.
I don't know. It's all strange to me. Like the more that I'm reading about this, it's just getting more and more interesting because again, I didn't know the exact details to the story. I will agree with you about the Wikipedia shit. What I do is whenever I'm trying to fact check something and prove that something is true or not, I also use Chat GPT, Google, and Google Scholar, right? So I use all three of them simultaneously, and I look at, okay, this little bit of information, this little information, and I see if all of them correlate together. For example, I was having a debate with somebody a few weeks ago, and what we were debating about is about the language spoken in biblical times um, by the Romans, and I said they spoke Greek, right? He's like, no, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. They're Roman. They spoke Latin. I said, okay, let's see. So what I did was I used the sources that I just told you, right? So not all of them said the same exact thing, right? But what all of them did say is that the languages spoken by the Romans was Latin and Greek. Every source said that, right? So it really just basically came down to what region exactly that you're talking about. And that's what matters in that time. Like, so some particular people, for Paul, okay, so clearly he spoke Greek. So depending on what region in that area you stayed in, depended on what language you spoke
Right,
when
because
we're talking about James.
only scholars needed to know Latin because you needed that for official paperwork. Um, and dealing with the church and royal. At that time, the Roman common language would have been Greek. Latin was for official shit. Greek was for everyday shit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's what the sources said. It said that. Um, but the argument basically was what language they spoke. I said I can still make the claim that they spoke Greek because it's telling you it did. I can't
Yeah.
tell you I can't tell you that they didn't speak Roman. I can't say that and tell the truth. I said, but I can say that they definitely spoke Greek. And that was the point. But the point of this whole conversation is all three sources that I used literally said something different or said it in a different way, basically. Let me finish reading some of this. Where was I at? So, am I on the same one that I was on last time? It doesn't look like it. All right, give me a second here. Sorry, y'all. What am I doing? Give me a second. All right, I think I'm on the right screen. Maybe not. Yeah, I am. Okay. Koresh's leadership. Hold on, where was it at? Koresh and followers further went to Mount Carmel Center, engaging in a shootout with George Roden that eventually resulted in Koresh's group occupying the land. These actions are regarded by Branch Davidians, who remain loyal to Lois Roden, as an act of identity theft against them. I think I read that. I'm going to get to early history. In 1929, Victor Hotef, a Bulgarian immigrant and Seventh day Adventist Sabbath school teacher from Southern California, claimed that he had a new message for the entire Adventist church. He presented his views in a book, The Shepherd's Rod, The 144,000, a call for reformation. The Adventist leadership rejected Hotep's views as contrary to the church's basic teachings, and local church congregations disfellowshipped Hotep and his followers. In 1934, Hotep established his headquarters in Waco, Texas, and his group became known as the Davidians. I read that. Let me get to other points. Okay. All right. The rise of David Koresh House arrival at Mount Carmel in 81 was well received by nearly everyone at the Davidian commune. He had engaged in an affair with Lois Roden while he was in his early 20s and she was in her late 60s. Howe wanted a father, a child with her, who, according to his understandings, would be the chosen one. When she died, George Roden inherited the position of prophet and leader of the sect. A power struggle ensued between Roden and Howe, and soon gained the loyal of the majority of the Davidians. In 1984, Howe and his followers left Mount Carmel after Roden accused Howe of having started a fire that consumed a $500,000 administrating building and press, which Roden subsequently renamed Rodenville. Another splinter group led by Charles Pace left and settled in Alabama. As an attempt to regain support, Roden challenged Howe to raise the dead, going so far to exhume the corpse of a 2 decades deceased Davidian in order to demonstrate his spiritual supremacy. Roden denied this, saying he had only been moving the community cemetery. This illegal act gave Howe an opportunity to attempt to file charges against Roden, but he was told that he needed evidence in order to substantiate the charges. On November 3rd, 1987, Howe and 7 of his followers raised Mount Carmel's equipped with 5.223 caliber semi-automatic rifles, 2 22 caliber rifles, and 2 12-gauge shotguns, and nearly 400 rounds of ammunition in an apparent attempt to retake the compound. Although Howe's group claimed that it was trying to obtain evidence of Roden's illegal activities, its members did not take a camera with them. The trial ended with the jury finding Howe's followers not guilty, but the jury members were unable to agree on a verdict for Howe himself. After his followers were acquitted, Howe invited the prosecutors to Mount Carmel for ice cream. It is claimed that Howe was never authorized to name his breakaway sect the Branch Davidians, and the church which bears that name continues to represent the members of the Branch Church who did not follow him. As a spiritual leader, Howe, who acquired the position of spiritual leader from Roden, asserted it by changing his name to David Koresh, suggesting that he had ties to the biblical King David and Cyrus the Great. Koresh is the Hebrew version of the name Cyrus. He wanted to create a new lineage of world leaders. This practice later served as the basis for allegations that Koresh was committing child abuse, which contributed to the siege by the ATF. Interpreting Revelations 5:2, Koresh identified himself with the lamb mentioned therein. This is traditionally believed to symbolize Jesus Christ. However, Koresh suggested that the lamb would come before Jesus and pave the way for his second coming. By the time of the 1993 Waco siege, Koresh had encouraged his followers to think of themselves as students of the Seven Seals rather than as as Branch Davidians. During the standoff, one of his followers publicly announced that he wanted them to thereafter be identified as the Koreshians. Man, this man is crazy. Just reading this shit.
Crazy as a bed bug, but I don't know how crazy a bed bug is.
Crazy enough to bite you on your ass if he catch you slipping.
Yup, 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 yup. And all I'm gonna say is the kids had sleepovers, and I was caught slipping. Never again. Never again.
Listen, that's my only fear in life. I had this job on the road, right? And it really made me become a motherfucking bed bug expert, right? So I had this job. The first store that I worked at, because what I did was I remodeled stores across America. I started working for a company and we did Home Depots. And that was the worst one, right? And the reason why is because they use choice hotels, right? One thing about bed bugs is they don't discriminate. They definitely don't discriminate. Any hotel in the continental United States, I don't give a fuck. You pay $1,000 a night, you are subject to getting your ass tore up. But what I will say is this: the more expensive the hotel, the less likely, for a couple different reasons. Because the expensive hotels, they actually pay the workers and they give them time to clean the rooms, right? When you go to choice hotels, these people only have 15, 16 minutes per room to clean the fucking room. So I don't know how you expect to stop that shit from happening. But I'm getting off track. It made me a bed bug expert, right? Because I worked at night. So I would have to get there on a Sunday morning, force myself to go to sleep, get up that night and go to work. So I'm pulling back the sheets, make sure ain't no speckles. Boom, I'm going to sleep, right? If I do catch them, because I probably had got bed bugs from doing this shit over the road, maybe 6 times at least. I didn't had them in my car before. I didn't have all in my fucking suitcase. I didn't have so many suitcases. I can't even count how many about it. I didn't buy it, left places, but it got to the point where I became a fucking expert on this shit. So I would go to sleep. Right, I'm already nervous, so I got the jitters. I'm thinking I'm itching naturally, right? So I go to sleep. Boom. If I wake up, I got a couple bumps. You know the pattern is either 1, 2, 3, or boom, boom, boom on you, right? All you gotta do, jump up out the bed, get rid of everything. Okay, this is your hotel. This is your problem. You're paying for this fucking wash, right? You're putting it in the what you call that damn dryer they got, the economy dryer, whatever the fuck they call it, right? You're putting it in there. You're paying for it, right? You're giving me another hotel. If I get bid again, I'm going to report you. The end. It's just that simple.
I be trying to figure out how people don't notice until they get all the way home. I was like, you didn't get bit once while you were there. You didn't notice it until you got home with your suitcase.
They lying, and the reason why I know they
That's
lying
the
is because
story they told me, and they swore by that story.
they lying because bed bugs is so fucking aggressive. Like I said, soon as you go to sleep, the first chance they get to bite you, they gonna take it, and they gonna act like it's the last minute. They like bam 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 bam. It's fucking winter time. It's winter time. Why the fuck you itching? It's common sense, really.
The kids, I didn't even know what a bed bug. I'm sorry, I'm about to digress your whole thing. But the kids, I didn't know what a bed bug was. I hadn't lived in the South long enough. Had never had to deal with them up north. I didn't know what they were. The kids had friends over, and they got in the furniture, the chair and the sofa,
Gotta throw it away.
and of course, the kids carried it from the chair and the sofa to their room. And by the time I knew what was going on, everything was infested as far as I was concerned.
Uh huh.
Everything. And luckily I found out about Daphne's Earth, and we knocked it out in 2 weeks. But that was 2 weeks of hell. That was a lot of vacuuming, redusting, vacuuming, redusting, double checking, bombing, vacuuming,
Uh huh.
and redusting. It was 2 weeks of hell.
Yep.
Hell. And that was because I had a light infestation. That's what I was told. I had a light infestation. I was like, you got to be kidding me. This is considered light,
Hmm. See,
but
the thing with bed bugs is this: there's so many places for them to hide. That's number one. And number two, most of their stages of their life is too small for you to see with your naked fucking eyes. That's the problem, right? So if you live somewhere where you have carpet, oh my gosh, it's too many spots for them to hide. It's too fucking many. So that's number one. The furniture and shit, there's too many places for them to hide. That's what I call bed bugs. There's too many places for them to hide. So you got to get rid of that. You got to go around all around the edges of things. Alcohol works good. And what you said is the key. Vacuum, vacuum, vacuum. Because say, for instance, if you spray and you bomb or you use alcohol, because you can use either one, right? Some of the fucking eggs and shit are not gonna die. So you have to take the vacuum, suck them up. I throw the vacuum away. I just keep getting the cheap ones.
yes, definitely do that. Definitely do that. When you are done with the fiasco, throw away everything and anything that you are not gravely attached to. Uh, we we decluttered a lot. I didn't even realize how cluttered we had got until it got messy like that.
Hmm. Come to the Midwest. You want to see some fucking bed bugs? Come to Cleveland, Columbus, Milwaukee, motherfucking Cincinnati, Chicago, Detroit, anywhere like that. Listen, you bed bugs that they run the show. They run the show.
Are
Hmm.
you for real? Even in
Hell
cold
yeah,
regions like that?
man. Listen, in Cleveland, 10, 12 years ago, they had bed bugs so fucking bad. They had them in the police station. They had them in Walmart. They had them every fucking where. Hell yeah. Yes. It's calm
How
now.
you
Like,
buy stuff out of Walmart and bring home bed bugs? Oh, that would make me mad. I would be
yeah,
cussing everybody out.
yeah, that shit was rough up there. And I don't even live in Cleveland. I just used to be hearing stories where I would go up there and shit. And that, man, that shit was bad. Real bad. But yeah, we definitely getting way, way, way off topic with these damn bed bugs. I'm having nightmares about this shit. Let me play another video real quick.
I ain't even gonna lie, I'm itching just thinking about it.
Shout out to the bed bugs, the realest ones on the streets. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, next generational trauma. Get some bed bugs. Now that's some real trauma.
Mm-hmm. Damn sure here. And I don't care who you is, anybody out there watching. If you ain't never experienced bed bugs, it's coming for your ass. You gonna get them eventually, one time. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. You gonna get them. The key is to keep them away from your house. If you can keep them away from your house, it's okay. It's okay. If they come to your house, you are fucked. So when I was on the road, I separated them from my house. You can't come to my house. We can kick it in the road. You can tear my ass up in the road. But when I get home, no, no. That's when you go too far.
In 1993, Americans watched breathlessly as FBI agents faced off with a self-proclaimed religious prophet and his armed followers in Central Texas. This was the Waco siege, a weeks-long standoff between the federal government and a religious group known as the Branch Davidians. Established by leader Victor Hautef, the Branch Davidians are a Christian sect, an offshoot of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, with a literal interpretation of the Bible's prophecies. Hautef and a group of his followers settled near Waco, Texas in 1935. Branch Davidians believed in the second coming of Jesus Christ and a day of judgment in which God will punish the wicked and reward the good. In preparation for Judgment Day, the Branch Davidians isolated themselves from the outside world in their commune near Waco. Confined to a 77-acre compound called the Mount Carmel Center, they established their own way of life. The group had gone through various divisions and changes in leadership before it was taken over by a charismatic Bible teacher named David Koresh in 1990. Koresh was a self-proclaimed prophet and believed that he was appointed by God to bring about the end of the world. Unlike his predecessors, Koresh practiced polygamy, taking a number of underage followers as wives who bore his children. He also collected guns and ammunition in preparation for the coming apocalypse. Word eventually reached federal authorities that the cult was illegally stockpiling weapons. February 28, 1993, agents from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms arrived at the Mount Carmel compound armed with search warrants for the property and an arrest warrant for Koresh. Gunfire erupted, although it's unclear which side started it. At the end of the 2-hour standoff, 4 ATF agents and 6 Branch Davidians were dead. The FBI intervened. Nearly 900 members of law enforcement descended on the compound, including Texas Rangers, Army personnel, and National Guardsmen. For weeks, FBI negotiators bargained with Koresh, bringing in supplies and allowing him to sermonize on the radio in a bid to get him to surrender. Though he allowed a number of Davidians to leave, Koresh displayed no signs of turning himself in. Agents then tried hardball tactics. They turned off the electricity, blasted loud music, and flashed harsh spotlights into the compound's windows. That didn't work either. After a 51-day standoff, Attorney General Janet Reno gave the FBI the green light to raid Mount Carmel. On April 19, 1993, tanks rolled in and punched holes in its walls and deposited nearly 400 canisters of tear gas inside the building. Several hours later, a fire broke out.
This far, having entering without fire hydrants, you have to haul all of your water. It's just a very bad scenario here at this point.
Winds fanned the flames and reduced the entire property to ash within an hour. Around 80 Branch Davidians died, including David Koresh and 25 children. While most died from fire and smoke inhalation, 2 members were found with fatal bullet wounds to the head. 4 federal agents were also killed during that siege. Several months later, a federal grand jury indicted 12 of the surviving Branch Davidians for unlawful possession of firearms and aiding the murder of federal officers. Many believe the government's actions were overly aggressive and maybe even illegal. The raid drew sharp public criticism, and controversy swirled over whether or not federal agents started the fire and shot the Branch Davidians. At the center of the storm was Janet Reno, who issued the final order to raid the compound. In 1999, she appointed independent counsel John Danforth to investigate the incident. Danforth concluded that the agents were not responsible and placed the blame squarely on Koresh and his followers for setting the blaze and shooting themselves in order to fulfill their apocalyptic prophecy. The investigation failed to satisfy critics who, to this day, believe in conspiracy theories of a federal cover-up. For some right-wing extremist groups and patriot militias, Waco was further evidence of a government willing to use its power against its own people. One of these extremists was a 24-year-old disgruntled Army veteran named Timothy McVeigh. Radicalized by Waco, McVeigh would retaliate for what he saw as the injustices of the Waco siege by bombing a federal building in Oklahoma City, exactly 2 years to the day of the siege at Mount Carmel.
I don't know if I believe that investigation by Janet Reno. I will say that possibly the Davidians started the fire, but I definitely do not believe that the two deceased people that they concluded to shot themselves in the fucking head. I don't believe that shit. You would have no reason to do that. You could have just laid there and died from smoke inhalation. That's stupid as fuck. And then, like, okay, so why y'all lying? Just say you shot him. There's no reason to even lie and say that they shot themselves. That's dumb. Okay, you raided you raided their compound. You were trying to save lives. They had guns. So what? You fucking shot them. So what? That doesn't matter. You were raiding their compound. They were committing all kind of crimes and X, Y, Z. Why do you have to add to that lie and say that they shot themselves? Because I don't believe that bullshit.
Colored people don't know how to tell a story without lies. They have no clue how to tell a story without lies.
That shit just don't make sense. And then on
And
top,
and the video said there was 12 of them. The story I pulled up said that there was 9 of
agents.
them. 9 charged after the event.
Mm,
The
mm.
video said there was 12 charged. This says there was 9.
I'm not sure how you can lawfully even charge them with the crimes that you charge them for. How you gonna charge them for some shit that you can't prove was theirs? Just because they survived and they're adults, you mean to tell me that you charging them with these weapons? Them was David shits. Them was
You
David's.
were there for one person. You were there for one person. You were there to find the guns of one person. But because these people survived and they might tell a different story than you, of course you would have to arrest them and charge them with something, anything. Make up any story you like. But you don't want them to be out there free and about where they can just write a book, start a blog, meet with reporters. Of course you would have to charge them and lock them up.
I mean, yeah, but I'm just saying all the stuff that the crimes that are being mentioned throughout this video for this past hour, they're all geared towards what David did. You
Yep.
see what I'm saying? So I don't see how you can lawfully charge these people. Now, if your point is they knew that the guns was there, so I didn't obtain these guns legally nor illegally, nor were they mine. You can't just charge me just because I ran the fuck out of there. And then I would like to know if there were any teenagers there, right? Um, well, I know there was teenagers there because he was fucking them, but I wonder if there were any teenage men there, like boys there. And did you try these people as adults, or what did you do? Because this shit is just fishy as fuck.
Welcome to yet another government story where it just doesn't make sense nor match up. Just saying.
Right at all. I'm gonna play another video. I'm gonna speed it up because it's 24 minutes, so that way we can get through it and go on with the rest of our days and lives.
Where 130 members had been residing. The Branch Davidians were an offshoot of another extreme Christian religious group called Shepherd's Rod, which was somewhat connected to the Seventh-day Adventists. Who was David Koresh? Who were the Branch Davidians? What caused the long siege resulting in so many deaths? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, a veteran of the United States Army and Marine Corps, former history professor, book author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History.
All right, so listen up. State Farm was trying to charge me $197 for car insurance.
Me too.
The man known as David Koresh was born Vernon Wayne Howell in Houston, Texas in 1959. His mother was 15 years old when she gave birth to him, and Koresh's grandparents ended up raising him. Other students teased him for being dyslexic and gave him the nickname Mr. Retardo. Koresh, as he grew, was lauded for his extensive knowledge of the Bible, and he believed he could speak directly to God and prophesied about the second coming of Christ. He also gave prophecies regarding the end of the world. Federal authorities post-event claimed that he was successfully converting more than 100 people and then convinced them to live in his secluded compound near Waco. His fame within the cult was assured following his time preaching his version of prophetic Christianity throughout the US, Israel, Australia, and Great Britain. Koresh was obsessed with rock and roll. In fact, when he was in his early 20s, he moved to Hollywood with hopes of becoming a rock star. When it didn't pan out, he moved to Waco and changed his name and reportedly began trying to attract groupies of a different kind. He had even produced t-shirts that read David Koresh, God Rocks, and continued playing in Christian bands throughout his life. His music is still available online. Koresh joined the Branch Davidians when he was 22 years old and soon became enmeshed in an affair with the group's president, Lois Roden, who was then in her 60s. Her son, George Roden, had been openly opposed to Koresh's relationship with his mother, Lois.
Okay. I had to pause it for a second, and the reason why I had to pause it is because now it all makes sense to me. I understand it. So I'm going to have to do this one time only, right? I'm going to have to side with David Koresh. I have to side with him, and the reason why I have to side with him is because the dude that said that he raped his mother, he's lying. Hard as fuck. He's lying. You just mad because your old ass mammy gave that young motherfucker some pussy. He did not rape your mom. She willingly fucked him. Maybe that day,
She was getting them cheeks clapped.
right? Maybe that day he may have came there and slapped her around, because that was his bitch. Whatever. Maybe he slapped her around and said, "You know what? Give me some pussy one good time, for the last time. And let me get this property." He may have done that, but your mother willingly fucked him. Stop lying.
And it apparently stated that, quote, he was destined to father a child with her, in essence breeding a new line of messiahs. After Lois died in 1987, Koresh tried to take control of the Branch Davidians and engaged in a power struggle against her son, George, who felt Koresh had brainwashed his mother. During this fight, the tension escalated and Roden was shot in the chest and hands. Koresh was tried for attempted murder, but after a mistrial, he was released. Those charges notwithstanding, due to tip-offs and known gun sales records, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms believed the community had nearly 250 weapons, including semi-automatic rifles, assault rifles, shotguns, revolvers, pistols, and hundreds of grenades. The ATF wanted a search warrant on the suspicion that the Branch Davidians were modifying guns to have illegal automatic fire capability using AR-15 upper and M16 lower receivers. Former Branch Davidian Mark Brolt claimed that Koresh had, quote, M16 lower receiver parts, end quote, which, according to ATF regulations, is constructive possession of an unregistered machine gun, regulated in the Firearm Owners Protection Act of 1986. The ATF also made the claim that Koresh was operating a methamphetamine lab, which would then bring in the military under the war on drugs, as well as the Drug Enforcement Agency, citing a drug connection based on 1, a recent delivery to the compound of chemicals, instruments, and glassware, 2, a written testimony from a former compound resident alleging Howell had told him that drug trafficking was a desirable way to raise money, 3, several current residents.
I don't know. I don't know. This story is it's starting to become the shakier and shakier. I'm starting to believe that it was kind of a conspiracy to put trumped up charges on him to get him. I'm not saying that he's not guilty of a lot of shit like statutory rape, brainwashing people, and things like that. But I'm starting to see that there's a lot of lies being told on this man in this story to get him down. Like, I was under the impression that he may have raped this lady. I did not know that that was the same exact lady that they were talking about. He engaged in sexual activities with and was his girlfriend. Now I'm starting to feel like that she probably verbally offered him and promised him this land when she passed on, and he probably was going there to collect on his inheritance for fucking her old ass. And her son probably was like, "Nah, that's mine. You swindled my mom." Blah 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 blah. And he mad. And I'm not saying that he shouldn't be mad, but what you shouldn't do is lie.
Right. And and like I said at the opening of the show, I I was all I was down with the whole thing until I found out about the underage girls he was breeding with. I was okay with the whole thing. I was like, that just sounds like white people being white people to each other. At least it wasn't a black town this time.
Well, I don't know. I was thinking maybe not that, but I was like, well, at least this isn't, black people engaging in this shit. But unfortunately, one of the video a few minutes ago, I seen a black person and an Asian person that looked like they were cult members as well. But I'm not making an excuse for him with the underage shit, because clearly
Now,
that's illegal behavior and he deserved to go down for that. But I can see.
oh, wait, the underage girls was not illegal. They were not. As long as he could make the claim that he considered them wives, it was not illegal. You got to remember, even today in 2024, with the parents' permission, you can marry any 13-year-old. Even my old ass can go out there right now, find me a little 13-year-old boy and be like, with your permission, mom and dad, I would like to marry your son. I will raise him up to be the kind of man that I need. I promise I won't touch him until he turns 18. I just want your permission to marry him now so I can raise him up to be just the way I want.
I agree. I definitely agree with that. But I don't know the exact parameters of their relationships, how old they are. And I don't know if he did exactly what you said. But you are correct. There are steps and measures that you can take to be a pedophile. You are right. Um, I don't know if that's exactly what he did, because they're just making it seem like he's not. But again, I'm going to have to side with him in a way, because I don't believe that there's no meth lab. I don't believe that, and I know that he did not rape that lady. I know he didn't. She probably was an old ass groupie. Fell in love with him. He still had long hair, playing the guitar. Um, she definitely had consensual sex with him. Um, so I do see two lies. I don't know what he's gonna do with no meth. I'm not saying that people don't do that. I'm not saying that in those times that people did not have meth labs, but I'm not seeing what he would do with this meth. I don't see any meth heads there. You know what
Um,
I mean?
you you sell it to the cops so that they can sell it where it's being used at.
I mean, yeah, maybe. I mean, you could say
Ain't
that, but that you could
I've
say.
looked into the background of it. I've looked into the background of it. He was most likely, if there was a meth lab there, if, and I'm saying if, because I don't know it to be true, it is quite known that places like that and biker gangs
Hmm.
were streamlining money into the KKK by selling meth, amphetamines
Hmm.
to the police departments,
Hmm.
who were then selling them into whatever neighborhoods they felt like destroying at the time.
Right, and I agree with that. I've heard stories about that. I've seen documentaries about that. Um, Biker gangs still do that, but then we would have to make that case as well. We would have to see that. We would have to see who he's dumping this on, because what I'm trying to say is I don't see him growing no meth. I mean, cooking no meth to serve his people. I'm not seeing that. So unless this is now let's say have some kind of operation where he's doing exactly what you said, funding money in and things like that. Maybe, but I don't hear none of these stories about this shit. Well, I have never heard it anyway.
Agree, 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 agree. I've never actually heard it associated with this particular spot. So you are correct.
Yeah, this story is just getting stranger and stranger and stranger as it goes.
Who had prior drug involvement. 4. 2 former residents who were incarcerated for drug trafficking crimes. And 5. National Guard overflights and thermal images showing a hotspot inside the compound, possibly indicating a methamphetamine laboratory.
Hey, sorry for interrupting. Isn't that annoying? What if I told you that?
Yes, it is.
July 30, 1992, ATF agents David Aguilera and Skinner visited the ranch Davidians gun dealer Henry McMahon, who tried to get them to talk with Koresh on the phone. Koresh offered to let ATF inspect the Branch Davidians' weapons and paperwork and asked to speak with Aguilera, but Aguilera refused to speak with him. The Branch Davidian members were well known locally and supported themselves by trading at gun shows and took care to have the relevant paperwork to ensure that transactions were legal. Branch Davidian Paul Fata was a federal firearms licensed dealer and operated a retail gun business called the Mag Bag. When shipments arrived for Mag Bag, they were signed for by Fata, Steve Schneider, or Koresh. The ATF wanted to arrest Koresh for unlawful possession of destructive devices and search the 77-acre compound, and local law enforcement wanted him for statutory rape. One of the reports stated that, in addition to his passions for Armageddon and sex, according to the Los Angeles Times, he had multiple underage wives and was rumored to sexually abuse girls, having sex with children as young as 10 and 11. This was confirmed by survivors after the fact. Koresh was having sex with the underage girls of many of his followers. Some of his followers, disgusted with his personal methods and abuse of young girls, left the compound. It was reported that a few even filed complaints with local law enforcement regarding the child rapes. Texas state law enforcement officials were also involved due to the sex allegations and other charges. The main justification was that in May 1992, Chief Deputy Daniel Weinberg of the Clemson County Sheriff's Department called the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms regarding his office being contacted by a local UPS representative regarding a report of one of their drivers. The UPS driver reported that a package he was delivering to the Branch Davidian compound had broken open, and he saw at least a half dozen grenades. He also reported that the compound had been receiving packages from an arms dealer for several months. The objective of law enforcement was to search the premises and arrest Koresh for unlawful weapons possession, and a search warrant was issued, and the raid was planned in daylight and was to be rapid in its execution. They planned the raid on March 1st, but decided to move it up a day. On Sunday, February 28, 1993, in response to reports that the Davidians had been stockpiling illegal weapons at the Mount Carmel Center, supposedly in preparation for the end of the world, Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms drug enforcement agents raided the property. That morning of the raid, Paul Fata and his son Kalani were already gone and on their way to a gun show in Austin. However, all surprise was lost when a KWTX TV reporter who was tipped off about the raid asked for directions from a U.S. postal mail carrier. Ironically, as luck would have it, the mail carrier was the brother-in-law of David Koresh. In a short time, the group's members were fully armed and prepared. An intense gunfight erupted, resulting in the deaths of 4 ATF agents and 6 Branch Davidians. The federal agents were attempting to arrest their leader, David Koresh, in the raid on the group's complex when they began to exchange heavy gunfire at the site. Officials said the Branch Davidians opened fire on the ATF agents first, which surviving members of the religious community have always denied. It's still not clear who fired the first shot. The Branch Davidian survivors claimed that the first shots came from the ATF agents outside. One reason may have been due to the accidental discharge of a weapon by an ATF agent, causing the ATF to respond with automatic weapons.
So here goes some bullshit, right? So the accidental, no, that's not an accident. The ATF, these people are trained professionals. There's no mistake besides the mistake that you let them get the tip off and you played it wrong. You knew how many potential people were in that compound. So the smart thing for you to have done is every time one of them motherfuckers left from there, right? You are the federal government. All you have to do is snatch their ass up and hold them. The next ones that come outside, snatch them up and hold them. Snatch them up and hold them. That's all you got to do. They're going to have to come outside eventually. They're going to run out of food. So every time a person leaves, all you have to do is arrest them until you know there's not enough motherfucking people for them to have a firefight, and take them down. So you played that shit wrong.
Well, see, that's just it though. Uh, ATF training is just shoot at it. Everybody, when you point a gun at them, is supposed to just go, "Oh, my bad, you got me." They don't expect people to actually fight. They they don't learn strategy. They just learn shoot. They don't learn strategy anymore.
Right.
That's just me.
That was just stupid. That was just stupid. Um, I don't get it. And they have to take some form of responsibility. I'm not saying that you should not take down criminals. I'm not saying that you should let people keep having sex with underage women. I'm not saying that you should let people have unlawful weapons. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you have to be a little more tactical about your approach, especially when you know there's motherfucking kids there.
Other reports claim the first shots were fired by the ATF to kill the dogs in the Branch Davidian kennel. 3 helicopters of the Army National Guard were brought in and all took incoming fire. During the first shots, Koresh was wounded, shot in the hand and the stomach. Within a minute of the raid start, Branch Davidian Wayne Martin called emergency services, pleading for them to stop shooting. Martin asked for a ceasefire, and audio tapes record him saying, quote, "Here they come again. That's them shooting. That's not us." When the first gunfight ended, there were 10 casualties in total, 6 law enforcement and 4 Davidians. By the end of the shootout, 4 agents with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and 6 Branch Davidians were confirmed dead. The remaining 62 adults and 21 children who refused to leave the compound began their standoff with the government. The compound was soon surrounded by armored vehicles and more than 600 federal agents. The standoff ended when a fire engulfed the complex on April 19, 1993. Only 9 people inside survived what became known as the Waco Massacre. ATF agents had used ladders to reach the roof, hoping to enter the arms cache on the east side of the building. Others approached from the west side of the roof. 1 agent was killed and another wounded, while a 3rd agent made it over the peak of the roof, joining other agents trying to enter the armory. The window was smashed, a flashbang stun grenade was thrown in, and 3 agents entered the armory. When the last man tried to follow them, bullets came through the wall, wounding him, but he was able to reach the ladder and slide to safety. 1 agent fired his shotgun until he was hit in the head by return fire and killed. The first group of 3 agents reached the armory and then came under fire, killing 1 Davidian, with 2 of them being wounded, with the 3rd covering their escape. And he fell off the roof but was not seriously injured, but another agent covering their escape was killed. The firefight began losing momentum in less than an hour as the agents ran out of ammunition. Agents Steve Willis, Robert Williams, Todd McKeon, and Conway Charles LeBleu were dead. The 5 Branch Davidians killed in the raid were Winston Blake, Peter Gent, Peter Hibson, Perry Jones, Michael Schroeder, and J. Dean Wendell. 2 were killed by fellow Branch Davidians after being badly wounded. Due to the deaths, the FBI took command, placing Jeff Gemar, head of the Bureau's San Antonio field office, in charge of the siege as site commander. The FBI hostage rescue team was headed by Commander Richard Rogers, who had previously been highly criticized for his actions during the Ruby Ridge incident. At the beginning, Koresh had telephone contact with local news media, and he gave phone interviews. The FBI cut his communication to the outside world. For the next 51 days, communication with those inside was conducted solely by 25 FBI negotiators. However, Koresh was always in direct contact with the FBI negotiators who, during a total of 754 phone calls, were trying to encourage him to turn himself in. The FBI had a video recorder delivered to Koresh, and on it, he introduced his children and his wives, including several minors, who claimed to have had babies fathered by Koresh. It was believed that Koresh had fathered perhaps 14 of the children with underage girls who stayed with him in the compound. Several Branch Davidians also made statements in the video. On Monday, March 8th, the Branch Davidians sent the videotape back to show the FBI that there were no hostages. All parties were there of their own free will. Outside the compound on April 1st, 9 Bradley fighting vehicles carrying M651 CS tear gas grenades and ferret rounds and 5 M728 combat engineer vehicles obtained from the U.S. Army began patrolling. It was known that the Davidians had at least 2 50 caliber machine guns, hence the AFVs being bought up. They destroyed perimeter fencing and outer buildings and crushed cars belonging to the Davidians and repeatedly drove over the grave of Branch Davidian Peter Gent, despite protests by the Branch Davidians and even the negotiators. During this time, negotiators arranged for the release of 35 Branch Davidians, including 21 children. But on April 19th, in an attempt to lure Koresh and his followers out, agents took decisive action that critics later called extreme and unwarranted. The reason was that Attorney General Janet Reno, newly appointed and with the Ruby Ridge disaster fresh in her mind, wanted an end to the standoff. This was when the FBI was brought in. ATF agents claimed that they heard shots coming from within the compound. Due to the children who had been physically and sexually abused long before the standoff, this was considered justification for launching tear gas attacks to force the Branch Davidians out of the compound. The FBI made that request to both President Bill Clinton and to Attorney General Janet Reno, who gave the green light. The cost was about $1 million a week, and Reno had had enough. She ordered the assault. The building was then rammed with tanks, and the agents launched a tear gas assault with more flashbang grenades. After more than 6 hours, no Branch Davidians had left the building, sheltering inside in an underground concrete block room called the bunker within the building, or they were using gas masks. Soon after that, the building caught fire at 3 different locations, although the actual cause of the fires are still a subject of hot debate, and during the fire, 76 Branch Davidians, including 28 children, died. Most of the dead had fatal gunshot wounds to the head, chest, and face, authorities said, and Koresh had a gunshot wound in the middle of his forehead. Among those killed were a 13-year-old boy who was fatally stabbed in the chest and 2 other minors who suffered fatal blows to the head, according to the FBI. It was sometime during the fire that the 33-year-old Koresh had died of a gunshot wound to the middle of his forehead. It remains unknown whether he killed himself or was shot by someone else. But that's not the only unanswered question when it comes to the infamous siege. Here are some other debates around and other little-known facts about the Waco siege and David Koresh. The questions were who shot first and who was responsible for the fire. David Thibodeau, one of only 9 Branch Davidian members to survive the fire, told Time magazine that he believed the dead Branch Davidians were shot by the FBI. Thibodeau said he firmly believed that nobody inside the complex would have started the flames. However, the FBI claimed that no law enforcement officer had fired a single bullet since the initial shootout, which may in fact be true. Thibodeau also said it's also likely some of the Branch Davidians may have shot each other to prevent a slower, more painful death in the fire. Spin magazine journalist Darcy Steinke, who covered the standoff as it was happening, later told the magazine, quote, "She felt the government was to blame for how things went down. I think it was the government's fault. Koresh jogged every day at the same time on the same route before the siege. And so, if they wanted to take him, they could have just pulled up in a police car and arrested him. It was insane to come to the compound of an obviously unstable person who you know has a ton of weapons with heavily armed ATF agents." The Justice Department stated that the 51-day standoff at the Branch Davidian compound was unprecedented in the annals of American law enforcement. Never before have so many heavily armed and totally committed individuals barricaded themselves in a fortified compound in a direct challenge to lawful federal warrants. It was also believed the government wasn't fully informed about Koresh and his followers before they decided to confront the group so aggressively. The Davidians were exactly what you'd expect them to be if you knew their theology and had done any research beforehand, but if the FBI had known what they were all about before they started, they would have never done the raid. It was a botched deal. The FBI has since reformed its tactical methods when dealing with standoffs. The final Justice Department report found that negotiators criticized the tactical commanders for undercutting negotiations. David Koresh and the majority of his followers perished, although his prophecy was unfulfilled. The sun didn't blacken, nor the moon turn red. The world did come to an end, just as their prophet had promised, stated Times' Nancy Gibbs as she wrote that article. The group didn't completely die out after the Waco debacle. 9 Davidians escaped the fire, and the group still hasn't completely dissolved. A new group formed called Branch, the Lord Our Righteousness, created a new compound in the old Waco space. They have a new leader. Some Davidians were still meeting regularly for Bible study in 2013, and some believed Koresh might.
I just had to stop it because it's like, so there's another one. You allowed them to build another compound on the exact property of where this happened at. 50 years from now, the same motherfucking thing is going to happen, and they're going to worship David Koresh. There's going to be a religion called that, and he's going to be a martyr again. What are you thinking about?
My question is, do they still allow the underage sex in there?
This is Texas. Absolutely. Get caught with some weed down there, though, and watch what happened to you.
Whoo, don't even get me started on that, man. You know, that is one of the reasons I do not visit my mother. It's just, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Texas is the only state I am scared to find some weed. Like, I can't bring it on the plane with me, so I would have to find it when I get there. But it's the only state I'm scared to do that. I would rather go without while I visit my mom than just go find some.
So listen, I'm going to be honest with you again. Uh, I had a job on the road. This is when I went to a different company though, and I had I did remodels for Walmart. So this company, they use mostly Holiday Inn hotels, to touch on the story I was touching earlier. So it wasn't really that many times that you would experience like bed bugs, but that's besides the point. So I've been to Texas a few times working there. I went to Houston and I was there for a few weeks, and I have a couple people that I went to high school with that actually live in Houston. So obviously, all I do is smoke weed, right? So on the road, one of my tougher challenges is to find weed. So the first time I went to Texas, like I'm saying now, I went to Houston and I was there, well, Katy, Texas, for a few weeks, which is right outside of Houston. Um, I had went to the projects, I think, on the south side of Houston, which was a very, 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 very uncomfortable um situation. Their projects down that motherfucker, they're like townhouses. They're gated communities. Like, you literally have to be buzzed in these particular projects. But the second you get in that motherfucker, and you get inside, then that's when you know. Like it's not like how the projects are here. It was a very, very, very uncomfortable situation, but the weed was very, very good. The second time, the second time I went to Texas, right? I went to Austin. So again, I'm remodeling Walmarts, and I met this guy that worked with me. He was a local. He eventually came on the road with us as well. Um, I can't forget his name. His name was like Poncho or Peanut or some shit like that. But he had a connection from California. All his stuff was dispensary level shit. He sold me this damn a fucking disposable pen, a Monopoly one with Monopoly character on that shit. They had pre-rolled blunts with that came in glass tubes. Texas, them motherfuckers down there, they got some weed now. That's the point I'm trying to tell you. If you get caught with it, you fuck. But they got some motherfucking good weed down there. Don't
I
lie.
I I went with friend, and she was able to school me that yes, they do have some good stuff down there.
Hmm.
But like I said, that was because friend is good at procurement. They always are able to procure. Never been my skill set. Like I said, I didn't find it until I was in my 40s. I had already done my work travel and all that stuff. And I ain't had nothing else better to do than sit home being mad. And I got tired of being mad. So one day somebody said, you know what? You need to just go ahead and smoke. I was like, smoke what? Cigarettes? I got them. They were like, no, 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 no. They were like, weed. I was like, I don't even know where to get it. If I knew where to get it, they was like, oh, is that the problem? I got you, boo. They left after shit and they came back before the end of my shit and they said, here you go. I want you to go home and figure this out. And it took me a couple tries. I wasted more than I got in there, but I remembered from my dad showing me how to do it for him when I was a kid. And I rolled that shit up and I put some fire on the end of it. And it was the beginning of the calm me, the me that you see now that can actually engage in a conversation without being like, you know what? Fuck you, fuck your mama, fuck your daddy, and fuck him too, her too, them too, all y'all. I quit.
So look,
I was like, all the jobs I could have kept all these years.
so look, they got some strange laws down there. Okay, so look, anywhere you go, you gonna see people with guns like a motherfucker. Like it, anywhere you go, public places, private places, you'll see people just with a big ass fucking gun right on their hip. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. They sell alcohol everywhere, every fucking where. I'm talking about hard liquor too.
Yep, yep.
Corner store. They sell hard fucking liquor. And another thing that you can do down there too is you can smoke every fucking where. You can smoke at the gas station. You can smoke at the bars. So eventually I started running game on them, right? So because they're so anti-weed, right? I just started getting vape pens that didn't smell like weed. So I would be going out to the bar. I don't drink, right? I would go out to the bar, just be sitting there smoking high as a motherfucker in their face, and they didn't even know. So it turned out good.
Ah, I can get high off the vape pen, but I really don't like them. I They do something weird to my lungs. I don't know. I be
They
coughing a
do.
lot more.
They're not good for
Uh,
you. You know why? Because they put moisture
no,
on your lungs.
is that what it is?
Hmm.
All right. Because I never took to them. I just never took to them. I mean, they're great in a pinch. I would rather have one than not have one. But
Hmm.
yeah, they're not my forte at all.
No, they're not my favorite. They're situational, good. When you don't have nothing else around, or if you're in situations where you're not allowed to smoke, or you can't go outside, or things like that. If you're in good shape if you have one that doesn't smell like weed, but a lot of them smell like a real, real strong weed. But some of them don't, depending on where you get it from. I'm gonna play this last little bit of this video. I have to pee as well. Give me 1 second. It's almost over, by the way.
Returned from the dead to lead them again. David came to give us a message and a hope, one survivor, Sheila Martin, said, and told People magazine, we hope to see him again. Our regret is only that we didn't serve God better. It was proven that the Davidians were well stocked with small arms numbering 305 firearms, including semi-automatic AK-47s and AR-15s, with some 46 semi-automatic firearms modified to fire in fully automatic mode, and mini shotguns, revolvers, pistols, 2 HK-SB-89s, and 2 M11s. The Texas Rangers reported that there were at least 16 AR-15 rifles, 2 AR-15 lower receivers modified to fire in fully automatic mode, 39 auto-sear devices used to convert semi-automatic weapons to automatic weapons fire, parts for fully automatic AK-47 and M16 rifles, 30-round magazines, and 100-round M16 and AK-47 magazines and ammunition pouches. They located grenade launchers, parts, flare launchers, gas masks, and chemical warfare suits, night vision equipment, hundreds of practice hand grenade hulls and components, including more than 200 inert M31 practice rifle grenades, more than 100 modified M21 practice hand grenade bodies, 250 caliber machine guns, 219 grenade safety pins, and 243 grenade safety levers found after the fire, Kevlar helmets and bulletproof vests, 88 lower receivers for the AR-15 rifle, and approximately 21 sound suppressors or silencers.
BetterHelp's main mission as a brand is to make therapy.
Sorry for the commercial, show.
The Davidians who surrendered were charged, and after a 2-month trial, were convicted on most counts, but the jury acquitted 4 of the Branch Davidians on all charges. Additionally, the jury acquitted all the Branch Davidians on the murder-related charges, but convicted 5 of them on lesser charges, including aiding and abetting the voluntary manslaughter of federal agents. 8 Branch Davidians were convicted on firearms charges. Those who were convicted and received sentences of up to 40 years were Kevin A. Whitecliffe, convicted of voluntary manslaughter and using a firearm during a crime. Jaime Castillo, convicted of voluntary manslaughter and using a firearm during a crime. Paul Gordon Fata, convicted of conspiracy to possess machine guns and aiding Branch Davidian leader David Koresh in possessing machine guns. Renos Lenny Abram, a British national, convicted of voluntary manslaughter and using a firearm during a crime. Graham Leonard Craddock, an Australian, convicted of possessing a grenade and using or possessing a firearm during a crime. Brad Eugene Branch, convicted of voluntary manslaughter and using a firearm during a crime. Livingstone Fagan, a British national, convicted of voluntary manslaughter and using a firearm during a crime. Ruth Riddle, a Canadian, convicted of using or carrying a weapon during a crime. Catherine Schroeder, sentenced to 3 years after pleading guilty to a reduced charge of forcibly resisting arrest. 6 of these people appealed, and the United States Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit vacated the sentences for the use of machine guns, determining that the district court had made no finding that they had actively employed the weapons, but left the remaining verdicts intact. The appeals went all the way to the United States Supreme Court, who reversed the decision, holding that the term machine gun in the relevant statute created an element of the offense to be determined by a jury rather than a sentencing factor to be determined by a judge, as had happened in the trial. About 100 relatives of those killed or wounded and survivors filed lawsuits against Texas and the federal government, but all these cases were eventually dismissed. So, what do you think of the story? Did the government overreact? Did they apply the best methods for reducing the problem? Or were the Branch Davidians themselves totally responsible for the outcome? Do you believe the government reports or what the Branch Davidians had to say about the event? Let us know in your comments. We would like to hear from you.
Ooh. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to believe in this situation. I believe that people obviously were killed. ATF agents were killed. I can't say who's 100% responsible for it. Clearly, the FBI overreacted. Their tactics were definitely flawed. They botched the job on so many different levels. They made a lot of mistakes. David Koresh was definitely a criminal. He definitely deserved to die. He definitely deserved to be convicted. With the silencers alone on the side of the law, if those weren't planted on him, and I'm not saying that they were or weren't, if he had possession of those silencers, he definitely is a criminal. He deserved to go to jail. If he had grenades, he deserved to go to jail. The other people that were convicted, I was always under the impression that most people that were, well, I always thought, I'm not gonna say I was under the impression, but I always thought that all the people that were white. I see there was a lot of foreigners. I was very surprised to see a black person there. But it seems like he was taking a lot of people in that may have been illegal immigrants. I don't know. It's just sad that children and others lost their lives. It's a sad situation.
And the black person I saw was female. I'ma just say, when you're trying to start a rainbow tribe, you're gonna need one of them. You're gonna need one of them. Don't need one here.
Yeah, I
My question,
didn't realize that was a female.
my question is this: I saw a picture of one gun from the fire.
Hmm.
All of the rest of them looked like they were like shined up and propped up for pictures. Where were they at while this whole facility burned to the ground?
Right. That's a good question. Very, very good question. Um, I was thinking like with the with what you just said, I'm like, well, that gun doesn't have any like fire, ash, or residue, and that would have been the 50 cal that they showed. Man, why the fuck weren't they shooting at you with? I mean, I'm not saying that they should have did it, but why the fuck weren't they shooting at you with that 50 cal? Because they could have knocked a lot of y'all out with that shit, a whole lot. And I have not heard one story about them being
They,
shot at with that
right,
fucking 50 cal.
they had all them silencers, but where's the gun? Where's the bullets or anything that was shot through them silencers? Show me where they got used. They said that the mail carrier snitched and said that they saw grenades being delivered. Did any of them get used? Did anybody pull the pins and throw them? And I'm still lost on how the FBI got there because it wasn't supposed to be an FBI offense. I'm still wondering how the FBI got involved.
Janet Reno, you didn't hear when they said that that shit was costing over $1 million a day, and she got the approval from Bill Clinton.
She got the approval from Clinton.
Hmm.
Did Clinton read first, or did he just sign it off because, well, seemed like a good idea at the time?
I think the latter, because again, this standoff after the initial ATF standoff was costing them $1 million a day. This Uncle Sam, he not gonna keep playing with you like that. He not gonna do that. You cost listen, bro. Not okay, so you got guns, you fucking minors. Now you're costing me $1 million. You're going down, David. You're going the fuck down.
But who shot him in the forehead? Himself?
I don't know, man. This shit
Cause,
is
cause,
just so
cause,
shaky.
cause, cause them guns look really long. They look really long. Look like
With
it'd
that
be really
50,
hard to hold it to your head
that
and
50 cal.
still.
Do you know how big them bullets is in that shit? And that's what I was saying. Why wasn't they shooting you with that? Because a 50 cal bullet is probably like that, about like that long. If they start hitting you with that motherfucker, even some of them damn tanks is gonna have to back up. So I don't, man. It's so many holes in that story. And then like
I'm looking at the flimsiness of the buildings. The tanks could have just rolled over the buildings.
I don't know what to believe in this story. I don't know who shot who did what, because it really doesn't make sense for David to shoot himself. Because okay, say for instance he just shot himself with a handgun, right? All right, well, why would you hide and all that shit? Why did y'all barricade yourself down there, right? And then they said the one 13-year-old boy was stabbed up. Who did that?
Somebody who didn't want them to leave. That's for darn sure. Maybe they wanted to. Maybe they wanted to leave. Maybe they wanted to be like, you know what? We hung in there as long as we could. We ready to go. And somebody was like, oh no, ain't nobody leaving.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's important to have streams like this and bring up things from the past so things like this don't happen again. Uh, when I first decided to make this show, I wanted it to be educational. I never thought about having this stream or the one I did last week, because actually the one last week led to this one. I could even keep going with it and take it to the Oklahoma City bombing one. Maybe later on down the road, I'll probably do that. But again, it's very important to know history of cults, religions, and things like that, so you don't make the same mistakes again. And it also illustrates the fact that perfectly normal human beings in society can be brainwashed when it comes to the belief in God. It's crazy. Even a man that is, what was he? Is he autistic, or what was they said he was?
Dyslexic?
Dyslexic, and I'm not trying to, ridicule or make fun of anyone with learning disabilities or mental illness or whatever it may be. I'm not a doctor. If I'm miswording it, forgive me. But it shows that even a person like this can brainwash hundreds of fucking people. Hundreds of people. He even swindled an old ass lady out of her drawers and out of her fucking compound. It's like it's just crazy. It's just the gift of gab is so fucking strong, especially if the person knows what they're doing and they have motivation for it and they've been trained to do this shit. It's crazy.
And while I was traveling in Oklahoma, I'm just going to point out, then in Oklahoma City, right now, in 2024, there is a company that they use for security throughout the entire city. It's a private security, separate from the police and sheriff's department. I watched it in real time. I paid attention closely for 2 weeks, and they are used for corralling the homeless and undesirables. And I'm gonna just say, if there's going to be another incident like this one at Waco and the bombing of Oklahoma City, I'm gonna say it's right to happen again, and it's being done right there in public in front of everybody, and they just ignore it like it'll happen to somebody else, not us.
Exactly. And they're, to me, in my opinion, to your point, they're setting the tone right now for it. Okay, so you're putting legislations into laws to for this behavior to be acceptable and to be promoted, right? So you're putting this shit in the classroom. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not put anything above God. Blah blah blah, or whatever the fuck them stupid ass Ten Commandments is. So eventually, you're gonna have some people that are gonna read that and take it literally. You know what I'm saying? And then once they start reading the book even more, okay, you're not a believer. Oh, your people are doing this now. They're gonna start targeting mosques. They're gonna start targeting this, that, and the third. It's crazy. And then when things like this happen, you complain. You're setting the tone for this shit.
All day, every day, week after week, month after month. And the more anybody tries to speak up about it, they double down, they triple down. Nuh-uh, not us. Nuh-uh, not us. Nuh-uh, not us. Okay, well, let me get the hell out of this state before y'all nuh-uh, not us, and I get caught in the crossfire. I'm out. Deuces.
Exactly. And another crazy thing about cult like behavior and cults in general, everyone's a cult except for me and my belief, right? Oh, they're cults. The Muslims, they're cults. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they're cults. But me, as my religion and my denomination, I'm spiritual, so I'm not a cult. Okay.
Again, dead center.
What you got going on the rest of the day, NJ?
Oh, you know me. I'm about to go in here, hit the bathroom, get rid of this coffee, heat my coffee up. Definitely gonna go smoke a cigarette. I'm very proud of myself. I have made it an hour and 49 minutes without a cigarette. Then I'm gonna come back in the house. I'm gonna get a little weed. I'm gonna hit the fruit salad that's down there. I'm gonna fuck that up, and then I'm gonna lay down and take a nap. And when I wake up from my nap, I have no clue what's next.
I'm gonna do the dishes that I'm gonna cook. I got some album reviews I wanted to do. Uh, some good albums came out this past weekend. I mean, excuse me, Friday. Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre's album came out. Missionary, very good album. So
Ah, ah.
I'm gonna do a review on that. Got a lot of good features on it. Discuss that. It's gonna be something short with under 2 or 3 minutes, and also my dude Fat Joe dropped the album as well. So I'm gonna do a couple album reviews
You
on
don't
that.
say. Not Fat Joe back out there.
Hmm. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right, all
yeah.
right, all
So I'm
right.
gonna do a couple reviews on that. But other than that, I ain't doing nothing. Maybe
Uh,
I'll probably go on TikTok a little bit later and argue with some people.
where are you dropping your reviews? On the You and the Tube?
Everywhere. I'm gonna put them on everything.
Oh, okay. Well, I will follow along and listen carefully and put my 2 cents in. That's what I'll look forward to after my nap.
Absolutely. Shout out to Ouija 666. I definitely agree with what you're saying. Ouija 666. I don't look at them as disabilities either, especially when you're talking about people that are like dyslexic um or autistic and things like that. And the reason why I don't really look at them as disabilities, because those two groups of people right there, a lot of times they are extremely smart in certain things, like superhuman smart. There's a guy I went to high school with, right, and he's autistic. I'm not gonna say his name, right. And the crazy thing about him is his family is gangster, right. He's just not like them, but he's artistic. And I'm gonna be honest with you, he has a photographic fucking memory. Anything you ever say to this man, he will never fucking forget. I see him 20 years at a time and he can remember word for word my name and every fucking thing I ever said to him in high school. And I'm like, how the fuck do you remember that? If I had a memory anything close like that, I would have been a millionaire by the time I'm 15, 16 years old. But again, he thinks a certain way. He's also a teacher now. And that just shows how fucking smart he is. And he's dyslexic and he's autistic. And I just, so you're right.
I think that they make
He's
the
not.
best teacher because same thing for me. I have a friend uh, diagnosed dyslexic in college, and that's what made it click for him. And then he went into teaching, also slightly on the spectrum.
Mhm.
So same thing, not photographic memory, but definitely retains a lot more details that somebody like me would just never do because I'm more of a, you know, stuff the information in, dump it for the test, and then never use it again.
Me, I feel like I got a one track mind. Like if I focus on something, like, okay, so if it's one particular thing and I just focus all my energy on that, I'm going to be the best at it. Everything else, later for it. You know what I'm saying? So that'd be my issue. And then, so what I try to do to compensate that is just do a whole bunch of shit at one time. And a lot of times, none of it gets done.
Yeah, I can't do that. It's I gotta finish. I gotta finish it. I will literally wake up in the wee hours of the morning talking about I never finished that. I have to get up and finish it. Yeah, I could finish sleeping, get rest. Mm-mm. I didn't thought about it. I didn't finish it. I gotta get up and go finish it. Terrible. I'm terrible. I'm terrible. But enjoy the rest of your day. Everybody have fun. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for having me up. It gives me something to do on my Sundays. Greatly appreciate it. And it helps me go down memory lane and remember some of that shit I try to forget.
Right. Anytime. I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you, Ouija 666. You can catch me here again Wednesday, on AAA Sports, 8 p.m. I don't know what the topic is going to be this week, but definitely it's going to be sports. I'll be back here Sunday again. I don't know. Okay, I do know what the title for next week is going to be.
Nah. You might change your mind by
No,
next week. Don't.
mm, mm.
Oh,
That,
okay.
that's going to be it. It's the history of Unitarianism. That's I'm saying it correct. Okay, so that's going to be the title next week. I know very little about it. And that's the exciting thing because at the end of the day, I'm gonna be learning no different than this stream right here. Most of that shit I wasn't aware of. I wasn't aware of none of it. I knew who he was. I knew that it was fire. I wasn't aware of any of it. So I'm actually excited to get that done. Again, thanks everybody for stopping by. Everybody enjoy the rest of your day. Catch me again here on Faith, Lies, and Confusion next week. Thanks. Good night.